Hello everybody, day 7 of shelter. I thought today to go straight into something that's very dear to my heart called authenticity. And what is authenticity? Authenticity is about being real. It's about being true to yourself, showing up with integrity, which is everything about you is showing up the way it was designed to, in essence, which is being in alignment with yourself. And so often we find ourselves in situations where we actually show up with behavior that's not really true to who we are, and it gets us into feelings of guilt and shame and blame and all of those wonderful things that take us into bias type behavior that is never helpful for us. And over the next couple of days, I'm wanting to go into recognizing patterns and looking at where your patterns show up and where they are helpful or unhelpful for you. So let's head straight into authenticity and a framework for you to be able to look at how authentic you are with you. So the first arena we want to look at is your feeling. And we've spoken quite a lot around feelings and your ability to be able to understand what you're feeling, make contact with it, and understand it. Very, very importantly, because if we're not, we're actually denying and losing an enormous amount of intelligence around the data that has been given to us to actually respond appropriately to situations. So emotions are the key, and I can't say that enough. Then we move into your thinking space. And here you want to be very aware of what it is that you're thinking. Become really aware of asking yourself the questions of, I'm feeling this, but what are my thoughts associated with it? Your thoughts are going to give you an enormous amount of information in terms of what's going on for you. You know, using emotional intelligence to determine your attitudes, your negativity. So you want to become very aware of your negative responses and thoughts to situations based on emotions, and what follows, because obviously we're going into actions after this. We're looking at your thinking, your feeling, and your actions that follow. Other things you want to be very aware of here are perceptions. Now, what are perceptions? Perceptions are your truth about a situation, but it's not necessarily the truth. And the problem is that we often go into making it the truth about a situation rather than standing back and being curious about somebody else's thoughts around a situation. And of course, that curiosity just opens up a whole new world for us to learn new and different ways that people see things, and it's actually a really healthy way and place to be. Other areas you want to be very aware of are your assumptions. And what are assumptions? Assumptions are you basically playing God. It's you assuming you know what's going on in somebody else's mind. And I think that the word assumptions gives us a lot of cue. It's actually makes an ass out of you and me to a large extent. Why? Because we step into places where we have these stories in our minds that we've believed to be the truth, and we respond based on that. Not wise at all. And then, of course, we've got the lies that we've believed. And here is our point of sabotage. Remember, there's a saying that if you can change your thoughts, you can change your world. I know it might sound like a bit like a cliche to you, but truly this is where the magic happens. Our battleground is our headspace. So you want to get to grips with where your lies are, what your limiting beliefs are, and what your point of sabotage is. Now, this may seem a little bit overwhelming at this point as I'm trying to bring it together for you, but over the next couple of weeks, we're going to break these open for you so that you can have a little bit more depth. But today I just want you to focus on what's happening that I want you to become very aware of in your headspace as you start to become more aware of yourself and where your thoughts go and what they might even be, so that we can start to look at patterns and your areas of development around your own personal journey. So then you've got the actions that follow. And of course, these three work hand in hand. Now remember, action can also be inaction. Being passive, withdrawing, not showing up at all is also an action. So the idea around this is that we want you to be in congruence with yourself, which means that you need to be in alignment with yourself. Okay, and here you want to become very aware of your patterns. What is it that, or where is it that you go when you're feeling a certain way, your thoughts, and then the outcome of that for you? So ideally, you actually want to bring all three of these together, because herein lies your integrity. And what is integrity? Integrity for me is bringing all of myself together so that I'm being true to me, I'm being authentic, I'm in alignment with myself, and I'm walking in integrity, which means that I'm firing on all cylinders and showing up the way that I would like to based on who I am. So just a few aspects, and remember over here we've got your ability to be able to name your emotions, understand them, and then of course navigate them and transform them. And for you to be able to do that, remember, it's being able to engage with each one of those areas so that you understand what's going on there for yourself. So we are very much doers. We've grown up in this world to have built a really strong muscle around the doing part of who we are. So very often we find ourselves in this place where we do think, do, think, do, think, do. So we just tick boxes, we get things done, and we move through the day. However, a lot of the time we're doing that without engaging emotions. And emotions, as we've said before, is actually the key, giving you the data that you need to be appropriate as you show up in the world. So if you are sitting doing the think, do, think, do, think, do, and not engaging with the emotions, that would then be your area that you would want to focus on and develop and start practicing on a daily basis. Then you've got others who do a lot of thinking and feeling. And of course, as you're seeing, there's very little action. And we all know somebody with each one of these aspects. And for some of us, it might be more than one area with different people that we show up utilizing different parts of ourselves. So you want to be aware of that as well. And then the third one is this feeling and action, which very often we refer to as people as being drama kings or queens. Oh, don't tell that person that, they're just going to be so emotional about it. Oh my gosh, let's rather spare ourselves the drama. It's a typical place where people are not engaging their cognitive ability to be able to actually respond rather than react to situations. And obviously the brain is very involved in all of this, and we'll get to that in terms of unpacking what's happening in the brain when we're actually reacting rather than responding. But for today, I want you just to focus on your authenticity. So this is not a linear model, okay? So it can get a little bit messy, which means that it can start at any place for you. Somebody might walk in and slam the door for argument's sake. So there's been an action which has created an emotion for you, then automatically goes into thoughts. So it could be somebody slamming the door, I'm feeling startled, unhappy, and my thoughts are, oh my gosh, what have I done? That would typically be an assumption that you've made around a situation or a story that you've made up in your own mind, and then of course, where do you go once you've got there? So, and similarly, it could be starting in a headspace for you. And for each one of us, there is a place that we spend a lot more time. For the overthinkers, they're spending a lot of time in this space over here with the thinking and the feeling, but not necessarily moving into action, and so on and so on. We'll get into more patterns later. So ideally, for today, you want to be thinking about these three realms, knowing that you need to become aware of what's going on for you in my feeling realm, my headspace, and the actions that follow. And ideally, with it being an authentic model, is for you to be able to check in with yourself to say, how authentic am I really being? So let me give you a practical example. Let's say that you're sitting in a meeting and your CEO is tearing a strip off somebody in the team in a way that is really not pleasant in front of the rest of the team. And you're sitting thinking, gosh, this is really not the way that our culture wants to show up, wants to be seen or experienced by outsiders or our own. And emotions that might be raised for you are, I'm disappointed, I'm angry, that's a real good friend of mine, and I'm sad about that situation. But what happens is when it goes through towards action, is you sit with a mouthful of teeth and you don't follow through at all. That would be you showing up inauthentic. Now, granted, we can get into all sorts of conversations around context and culture and hierarchies and all sorts of things in terms of why you wouldn't show up where, that may not work for you too well. But ideally, we want to get to a place with our own authenticity where we're vulnerable enough to show up and be courageous, have a voice, say what it is that we're saying in an appropriate way. Remember, it doesn't have to be in a reactive way. It could be out of curiosity, where you go into that space and ask for permission to speak your heart, your mind, and start those courageous, rumbling conversations that are so important. And remember, I've used a work context here, but this is very much a family scenario because why it's about you. It's how you are showing up authentically. So if you've got any questions and something wasn't clear to you, please pop your questions in at the bottom. I would love to hear them. It just allows for relevance for me in following through with what you want to be hearing. Stay well, and I'll see you tomorrow.